December 7th, 1995, Miami Arena. Whitney Houston collapsed during the encore of How Will I Know? But it wasn't exhaustion. The real reason was caught on a fan's camcorder, footage that disappeared for 29 years, until now. Write in the comments, where are you listening to this story from? And what time is it right now? The official story was simple: dehydration and exhaustion. That's what Rolling Stone reported. That's what MTV News announced. That's what Whitney's publicist told the 15,000 fans who watched her fall. But Roberto Sanchez, sitting in section 203 with his new Sony Handycam, captured something else entirely. 29 seconds of footage that would disappear from his apartment 2 days later, along with $50,000 in cash left in an envelope marked "For Your Silence." Roberto kept his silence for 29 years, until last month, when terminal cancer made him decide the truth mattered more than money. He uploaded the footage to a private server and sent links to 3 journalists before dying on January 3, 2025. What that footage reveals changes everything we thought we knew about that night. The concert had been flawless. Whitney, wearing a white sequin dress that caught every light in the arena, had performed for 90 minutes without a single mistake. The Miami audience, a mix of Art Deco socialites and Cal Ocho families, had been on their feet since the 3rd song. The arena, despite its notorious December humidity, felt electric. She'd just finished "I Will Always Love You" to a standing ovation that lasted 4 minutes. The show should have been over. But the crowd wanted more. They chanted "Whitney, Whitney, Whitney," until the lights came back up. She returned for the encore, laughing, glowing, seemingly invincible. The opening synth beats of "How Will I Know" filled the arena. The crowd erupted. This was the song that made her a superstar in 1985. 10 years later, she still owned every note. But here's what nobody in the audience knew. 40 minutes before the show, Whitney had received a visitor in her dressing room. The security logs, which disappeared from Miami Arena's files until a custodian found copies in a storage room in 2024, show the entry 7:20 p.m. Marcus Turner, personal business, approved by artist. Marcus Turner wasn't his real name. According to federal records, unsealed just this year, his real name was Detective Michael Torino, Miami-Dade Police, Narcotics Division. He wasn't there as a fan. He wasn't there as a security. He was there with an ultimatum that would destroy Whitney's world in exactly 2 hours and 13 minutes. The conversation, according to Whitney's bodyguard Ray Watson, who broke his NDA after her death, went like this: "Miss Houston, we have a situation. Your husband was arrested 2 hours ago at Miami International Airport, possession with intent to distribute. He's looking at 15 to 20 years, unless..." "Unless what?" Whitney had asked. "Unless you cooperate." The most shocking part is what they wanted her to do. They didn't want Whitney to testify. They didn't want information. They wanted her to wear a wire. That night, during her concert, her husband Bobby Brown had been caught with 2 kilograms of cocaine, but he was small time. The Miami police wanted his supplier, who they believed would be at the concert, in the VIP section, waiting to celebrate a different kind of performance. Whitney had refused. Then Detective Torino showed her the photographs. Bobby in handcuffs. Bobby's face bloodied from resisting arrest. Bobby, who, despite everything, she loved with a desperation that would eventually kill her. "You go on stage as normal," Torino had said. "During the intermission, you meet with Vincent Caruso in the VIP green room. He trusts you. He'll talk. We get what we need. Bobby walks. You refuse. Bobby goes away forever. Stop. What happened next will haunt you." Whitney had no choice. They fitted her with a wire during the costume change between acts. The white sequin dress was specifically chosen because its heavy beading would hide the recording device. The battery pack was taped to her lower back, covered by the dress's dramatic bow. Every movement she made during the second half of the show was careful, calculated to keep the wire from showing. But Vincent Caruso never showed up. He'd been tipped off. The VIP green room remained empty during intermission. Whitney had risked everything for nothing. Bobby was still in custody. The wire was still recording, and Detective Torino, standing in the wings, was getting impatient. During "I Will Always Love You," the wire's battery pack had started heating up, a malfunction. The adhesive tape holding it began to fail from her sweat and the device's increasing temperature. She could feel it burning her skin, but she couldn't stop. Not in front of 15,000 people, not with Torino watching, not with Bobby's freedom hanging in the balance. She finished the song, left the stage, and tried to remove the wire, but Torino stopped her. "Caruso's here," he lied. "He's in the audience. He'll come backstage after the encore. One more song." The footage Roberto captured shows what happened next. Whitney returned for "How Will I Know." The camcorder, though shaky and filmed from section 203, captured something the official cameras missed. At 10:47 p.m., during the second verse, Whitney's hand went to her back, not in a performative gesture, but in obvious pain. The wire's battery pack had overheated to dangerous levels. Later investigation would reveal a manufacturing defect that had caused 3 similar devices to catch fire. She kept singing, "How will I know if he really loves me?" But her movements became erratic. She was trying to disconnect the wire without anyone noticing. The backup dancers, unaware of the situation, continued their choreography, making Whitney's distress look even more pronounced. At 10:48 p.m., visible in Roberto's footage, smoke began rising from Whitney's back. The battery pack had burned through the dress fabric. The audience thought it was a stage effect, but Whitney knew her skin was literally burning. She made it through the chorus, her voice never wavering even as second-degree burns formed on her lower back. Then at 10:49 p.m., she collapsed. But the real horror was what happened while she was on the ground. The official story says Whitney was immediately attended to by medical professionals. That's a lie. Roberto's footage shows the truth. For 17 seconds, while Whitney lay unconscious on the stage, Detective Torino rushed out not to help her, but to retrieve the wire. He can be seen pulling something from her back, pocketing it, then signaling for the medics. 17 seconds, where Whitney Houston lay burning on the stage floor, while a cop covered up evidence. The backup dancers formed a circle around her, blocking most of the audience's view, but Roberto's elevated position in section 203 captured it all. Whitney's dress was burned through, her back was scorched. When the paramedics finally reached her, one can be heard saying, "Jesus Christ, she's been burned." The arena lights went dark. The announcement came, "Ladies and gentlemen, due to exhaustion and dehydration, Miss Houston will not be able to continue. Please exit safely." But Whitney wasn't exhausted. She wasn't dehydrated. She was the victim of police coercion that had literally burned her alive. Here's what the cover-up looked like. Whitney was taken to Jackson Memorial Hospital. The official records state exhaustion and mild dehydration. No mention of burns. No mention of the wire. No mention of Detective Michael Torino, who doesn't appear in any official report from that night. Dr. Patricia Morales, the attending physician, was reportedly transferred to a hospital in Alaska 2 weeks later, with a substantial signing bonus. Roberto Sanchez went to the Miami Herald the next morning with his footage. He never made it to the meeting. His car was pulled over for a routine traffic stop. The tape was confiscated as evidence. When he got home, his apartment had been visited. Nothing stolen except his backup copy of the footage. The $50,000 on his kitchen table came with a note, "Your family is beautiful. Keep them that way." Whitney was released from the hospital after 3 hours. The official photo showed her smiling, waving, perfectly healthy, but her assistant, Maria Rodriguez, later revealed Whitney couldn't lie on her back for 3 weeks. The burns were so severe she had to sleep on her stomach, taking painkillers that would begin her final descent into addiction. The darkest part is what happened to Bobby Brown. Bobby was released without charges 12 hours after Whitney's collapse. No explanation, no record of arrest. The entire incident was erased, but the damage was done. Whitney now knew Bobby was dealing. Bobby now knew Whitney would literally burn for him. Their toxic codependency deepened into something that would eventually kill them both. Whitney in 2012, Bobby's soul long before that. Vincent Caruso, the target of the sting, was found dead in Biscayne Bay 2 weeks later. Boating accident, the papers said. Detective Michael Torino was promoted to captain 6 months later. He retired with full pension in 2010 and moved to Costa Rica, where he died in 2023, taking his secrets to the grave. But Roberto's footage survived, hidden in a safety deposit box in his mother's name, transferred to digital, waiting for when the world is ready to know. His final letter said that Whitney Houston was burned alive by the people sworn to protect her. Wait. The footage reveals something even worse. At 10 hours 49 minutes and 23 seconds p.m., just after Whitney collapses, Roberto's camera captures something extraordinary. A woman in the VIP section stands up and screams. The audio is faint but clear. They're killing her. They made her wear it. I saw them put it on her. That woman was Robin Crawford, Whitney's closest friend and former lover, who had been with her in the dressing room when Torino arrived. Security immediately surrounded Robin, and she was escorted out. She was put on a plane to Los Angeles that night with a warning talk, and Whitney pays the price. Robin kept quiet for years, but in 2019, she finally wrote about that night in her memoir, though legal threats forced her to remove the chapter before publication. The original manuscript, leaked in 2024, contains this passage. I watched them wire her up like an animal. I watched her cry as they taped that device to her beautiful skin. I watched a star being forced to burn herself alive for a man who was destroying her, and I couldn't do anything. They had guns. They had badges. They had Bobby's life in their hands. The concert footage from the official cameras has been edited. If you watch the official DVD release of Whitney's 1995 tour, the Miami concert ends after I Will Always Love You. The encore is missing. The collapse never happened. History was rewritten. But one frame, at 10 hours 47 minutes and 32 seconds, shows something the editors missed: a small puff of smoke rising from Whitney's back, visible for less than a second. They thought no one would notice. They were wrong. The burns on Whitney's back required skin grafts. The scars never fully healed. In every performance after December 7, 1995, Whitney wore dresses that covered her back completely. The costume designer from her 1996 tour, Patricia Webb, confirmed she had terrible scarring, burn marks that looked like someone had pressed hot metal against her skin. She told me it was from a childhood accident. I knew she was lying. The real tragedy is what this did to Whitney's trust. After Miami, Whitney never performed without her own security sweep of every venue. She became paranoid, convinced she was being watched, recorded, used, because she had been. She hired private investigators to check everyone who came near her. She installed recording devices in her own dressing rooms to monitor who entered. The woman who had been so open, so trusting, became a fortress of suspicion. Her journal from December 8, 1995, recovered from her estate, contains one line: "They burned me to save him, but who will save me from the ashes?" Stop. This detail changes everything. 3 months after the Miami incident, Whitney received an unmarked package. Inside was the original wire device that had burned her, still bearing her dried blood on the battery pack. The note said, "A souvenir of your cooperation. A friend." She kept it. That burned, bloodied wire was found in her hotel room the night she died in 2012. She'd carried it with her for 17 years. Her daughter, Bobby Christina, later said her mother would sometimes hold it and cry, saying, "This is what love costs." The Miami Arena was demolished in 2008, but workers reported finding something strange in the ruins of what had been the backstage area: dozens of melted wires, recording devices from the 1990s, as if someone had tried to burn evidence but failed. One construction worker, Luis Mendez, kept a device as a souvenir. When tested in 2024, it still contained a partial recording, Whitney's voice, singing "How Will I Know," then screaming. Here's what Detective Torino's widow revealed after his death. In 2023, Michael Torino died in Costa Rica. His widow, Elena, went through his papers and found a sealed envelope marked to be opened only after my death. Inside was a full confession about December 7, 1995. He admitted to forcing Whitney to wear a defective wire. He admitted to covering up her injuries. He admitted to destroying evidence. But the worst admission was this: there was no drug bust. Bobby Brown was never arrested. It was all a setup to get Whitney to cooperate in a federal investigation into music industry money laundering. She was never supposed to get hurt. The wire was never supposed to malfunction. But when it did, we had to choose: admit what we'd done and face prosecution, or cover it up and let her suffer. We chose ourselves. We always choose ourselves. The FBI denies any involvement. The Miami-Dade police claim no records exist, but Roberto's footage, those 29 seconds, prove otherwise. The woman we watched perform fearlessly for decades was literally burned by those meant to protect her. In her final interview, 3 days before her death, Whitney was asked about her worst moment on stage. She paused for so long, they almost cut to commercial. Then she said, "Miami, 1995. I learned that night that everyone has a price, even me, especially me." The interviewer, not understanding, asked what price she paid. Whitney lifted the back of her shirt slightly, revealing just a glimpse of scarred skin, and said, "Everything has a cost. Some costs leave marks." The footage Roberto Sanchez protected for 29 years is now public. You can see it yourself. The smoke, the collapse, the cover-up. You can see Whitney Houston, one of the greatest voices of all time, sacrificed for an investigation that led nowhere, protecting a man who wasn't worth protecting, burning for a love that was killing her slowly. The Miami Arena is gone. Detective Torino is dead. Bobby Brown survived. Though whether that's a blessing or curse remains unclear. But those 29 seconds of footage remain, proof that on December 7, 1995, Whitney Houston was burned alive on stage, and the world was told she was tired. She wasn't tired. She was on fire. Literally. The final, most heartbreaking detail. Whitney's autopsy in 2012 revealed extensive scarring on her lower back, consistent with second and third-degree burns. The coroner noted them, but didn't investigate their origin. They were labeled historical injuries, non-contributory to death. But Maria Rodriguez, Whitney's assistant, knows the truth. Every night after Miami, Whitney would apply cream to those scars, and every night she would say the same thing: "They burned me, Maria. But I kept singing. I always keep singing." On December 7th of every year, until her death, Whitney would cancel all appointments at 10:49 p.m. She would sit alone, wherever she was, and hold that burned wire. Her daughter once asked what she was doing. Whitney's answer: "Remembering the moment I learned that love and pain are the same fire." Roberto Sanchez died on January 3, 2025, finally free to release his footage. His last words to his nurse: "Tell them Whitney kept singing while she burned. Tell them she never stopped. Even on fire, she never stopped." The footage is online now. 29 seconds that change everything. Watch it. See for yourself. See Whitney Houston burn for our entertainment and keep singing. See her collapse and understand it wasn't exhaustion. See the truth they hid for 29 years. She deserved better. She deserved the truth. Now finally, she has it.